welcome to our podcast. We are excited to have you along for this journey. My name is Ann Madison, and I'm the Executive Director of Peace Restored. I'll be your host as we discuss mental health and faith in our podcast. Seeking Healing, Finding Hope is a production of Peace Restored, a 501c3 nonprofit located in Indiana and serving women everywhere. We are so glad to have you listening in again. This week, I have joining me again is Angela Key. Angela has been serving on staff with Peace Restored since 2017 as our Young Widows Coordinator. Today, we will be in discussion of what occurred since 2016 at Peace Restored. If you did not hear our first podcast, which we shared how and why we started, you'll want to go back and listen to it. We will link that show in our show notes to make it easier for you to find. So before we jump in, Angela, welcome back.
Thank you. I am excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad that you can be on our show again. It was fun last time to talk about Peace Restored, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
Yep.
Go back and remember a little bit.
Yes.
So as we talked about last time, you and I have kind of been the founding two together. So you've been with me the longest. But this week I'm excited to be able to talk with you about how we've been growing. We talked about in 2016, we began to see our first clients, but during this time, not everything about the nonprofit world is completely glamorous. And so we'll leave out some of those details, but it's going to be exciting to hear about all that God's been doing, your journey to Peace Restored, because I think when people hear about the work that we do at Peace Restored as being, a non-for-profit, a 501c3 that works with women that have been through a variety of difficult circumstances, and we focus on the areas of trauma, abuse, and grief, they can intrinsically understand that the grief component goes with the young widows. But I don't think they understand how the trauma and sometimes even the abuse weaves into the widowshood group. And so I think it'll be good for our listeners to be able to hear how your story weaves together with Peace Restored, and then why we, as an organization, specifically serve a young widows demographic. And so, Yeah,
I mean, everybody needs to know those details and, of course, how we started out. And then, I think you had been going maybe in a year or so when I came up with the idea about serving women, widows. And so I had this idea, but I just didn't know how to, get this idea up and running. And so I kind of went through a couple connections, and we got together and we were introduced. My heart was to serve women, but especially widows.
Yeah. I remember that first conversation we had. I think we met at a restaurant in town, and we just chatted. It felt like, I think when you and I met, we kind of hit it off pretty quick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're like, okay, we can do something with this.
Yes.
We kind of joked about, like, how do you take a bag to somebody who just has someone deceased? It's not like you can just show up at a funeral home like, hi, here you go.
Yes.
Welcome to the club. It's not something they want to do.
Right.
And while we bring a little bit of levity to what we do, because laughter is good medicine, but we know it's a serious issue, right? We know it's seriousness of it. And so we wanted to find a good way to work together. And so I think we started that conversation. So it was really neat to watch as we kind of talked, and we really talked about how can we do a program together. And it really started a good conversation.
Yes.
So can you share with anybody why, you have such a heart to serve widows?
Yes. So I think about a year or probably longer before you and I met, I felt God lay an idea on my heart about giving I called them widow bags, to ladies who found themselves in the same situation as I did, and their children, because at the time my husband Kirk passed, Emily was 9. So, and I remember at the funeral home, people showing up with, crayons and, coloring books and books for me. Stuffed animals, she had 3 or 4 or 5 stuffed animals. So I just, as time went on, and through my counseling, my counselor told me at some point you need to turn and help those behind you, serve the other ladies coming up behind you. And at the time, I thought, she's crazy. There's no way that I'm ever going to get to that point, where the hurt and the pain of him being gone, that I would turn around and do that. But she was right, as she normally is, and I found myself in that situation. But at that point, we were really busy in soccer season. My daughter played soccer year round, so but it's just like I would lay that idea down, and then God would be like, "Oh no," and it'd come right back to me. And so I started kind of going through some channels to see, how to do this, because the logistics of it, like you said, I didn't want to so-called crash a funeral home, people I didn't know, and just hand, hey, where's the newly widowed at? Oh, here's a bag from me to you.
It's not really something you want to do at a funeral home, or that you want to have happen to you if you're in a funeral home.
Yes.
It's not a good welcoming
No, it's
way,
not. It's not, no. So, because if it was been me and somebody did it to me, I would have been like, okay, security.
Yeah, right. It'd be like, I need some help here,
Yes,
right? I feel like that's not good.
Yes. So,
so there had to be a better way, right?
Yes, for sure. So, like I said, I kind of went through some channels, and your name and email address was given to me, and I reached out to you, and we started kind of connecting, and you agreed to meet with me and share my thoughts, and here we are, over 5.5 years later.
Yeah. You know what, Angela, I just literally realized this as I was reading through the script, and we've known each other for a while now. I was looking at the dates that you wrote down, and I find it to be very stark and, interesting coincidence, if you will, that about the same time you were going through your stuff is the same time I was going through mine.
You're right. Yep, 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's neat to think how God was like, I'm going to take these two women that are going through some really hard things in two separate places.
Right.
And I'm going to orchestrate their steps, and I'm going to allow them to meet in a few years.
Yes,
and
for sure.
They're both going to be in a place to where they can serve together. I just think, wow, that's amazing.
It is amazing, because I wanted to start my own fund. One of my friends had lost her daughter not too long after I had lost Kirk, and she had started a fund and was giving back. And I'm like, well, I can do that, but I was kind of, well, maybe you need to find, let's find you another avenue. And that's when your name came up, and Peace Restored's name. And I was like, I haven't heard of them. But as soon as I left the meeting, I went home and Googled and found you.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, well, she's right in Mooresville. This is perfect, because,
I know. And Angela's from Mooresville area. Hopefully you don't mind me saying that.
Oh, no.
And then I'm not, but I live in the Mooresville area now. And so it's those orchestrating of those steps to get us both to the same place.
Yep.
It's really, when we get to look back, it's just amazing to see him threading things together.
Yes, for sure.
Because there's no way that I could have planned our meeting the way that it happened.
No.
Yeah, so thanks for sharing all that. And I appreciate your transparency and just really going into the story, what you went through. Is there anything else that you want to share from your story? I don't want to gloss over that, but I want to give you...
So I became a widow in June of 2011. It was a sudden loss. He wasn't sick. It was, it wasn't lingering. It was like a rip a Band-Aid off type of situation for us. We had just celebrated our 18th anniversary, 2 weeks before. He owned his own diesel mechanic shop. And so 2 weeks before, or about a week and a half before, the transmission had went out in our personal vehicle. And so we were trying to figure out, what we were going to do with that whole situation. And so we rented a car, and he decided, because he owned a mechanic shop, and he was a
Right.
mechanic, even though it was more diesel. That with the help of of his brother and his uncle, that they could fix
Yeah.
our the SUV we had.
Sounds like he was a good caretaker.
He was very good. Um, so so he with his shop, he worked late nights and he wasn't really good about answering his phone call. And back in 2011, texting really wasn't big at that point. Like the iPhones were just starting to splash in for us, and he had, I think he probably had either a flip phone or one of those.
Yeah, you're dating yourself now.
Yeah, for sure. But he just, he wasn't really good about answering his phone. He could get text. But so it was a Saturday night, and we always went to dinner, and either with family or just us, just the three of us, because we just had the one daughter, and we would go. Family wasn't with us. We would go and just go and visit family, and so it was getting later and later. We were calling, I believe Emily text. And he wasn't answering, but he was getting ready to move from one shop to another within the same complex. So, he's a workaholic. So I thought, well, he's just working. So, we decided to take a drive to go and see where he was at. And I thought for sure I would pass him on the road, and we never did. And so we get up to, the shop, and it was eerily quiet when I walked in, and unfortunately, my daughter Emily was right behind me, and our personal truck had fell on him. And so it was, just thinking back, it's still so surreal.
Yeah, I bet.
Just the, and I play it back 100 times, and I just wish that she wouldn't have been with me.
Oh.
But she was. So,
I know.
but it's just really hard to believe, that he's gone.
Yeah, I bet.
And there's still lingering trauma.
Yeah.
Because we both have been diagnosed with PTSD. Hers is worse than mine. And it's just that lingering, pain and heartache and hole.
Yeah, because it's not something you would ever expect to see.
No.
Yeah, and
No.
that's.
Yeah, so, we just, every day, we miss him every day, and, there's probably not, 10 minutes that go by that I don't think about him.
Yeah.
Still, and we're 11 years out.
I know.
So,
Yeah, I know you talk about Kirk very fondly.
I do. He was,
And
we met when we were 19, grew up together, so, yeah.
Yeah. I know that was a really hard day and a really hard memory.
It is.
So grateful that you're willing to share that and be so vulnerable with our audience and me. I've heard it before, and I still,
I know. It's 11 years, and I know. It's a hard story.
It is. But you and Emily have done so beautifully. I've had the privilege of having Emily work at the office too at Peace Restored a few times. And you guys have done such a good job of honoring that story well and serving well through your own pain and serving so many other women through that. And I think that's such a wonderful way to honor the memory of Kirk.
Yes.
And all that you guys went through on that terrible, terrible day.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it is that the living out of what, the Bible says in Isaiah 61, how God will turn our ashes into something beautiful. And I can see that in your life and how he's taking kind of the ashes of that day, the hardness of that day, and saying, Angela, I know it was tough. I love you, and we're going to take this into something, and we're going to make something beautiful out of it. And that's what he's been doing through you with the Young Widows group.
Yes.
I mean, just the number of women that have come through the doors that come in and say, man, I'm a young widow. I had no idea of the statistics of widowhood. And, in the U.S., I think the average age right now is between right, 55 to 59. It's pretty young.
Yes.
And so I had no idea until I met you.
Yep.
You opened my eyes a lot about widowhood, because while my mom was a young widow, it's funny, I didn't think about her as a young widow.
Yes. Yep.
Because it was just what I guess it was normal to me. So I didn't think of it as being normal to everybody else, though. And so then when I met you, I began to see, man, there's so many women out there. This is their reality, that they're young and they have babies.
Yes.
I mean, I know Emily was 9, but we can still call her baby, right?
Well, yep. She's still my baby.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so to know that there's such a need for what we do is so huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So thank you for sharing your story again and going into that. Because again, I know it's not easy, and I don't want to just like gloss over and be like, oh, thanks. But it is,
Right.
It's hard for us to share our stories.
It is.
I mean, because like you said, you're 11 years out, but it's still that tender spot, and it still hurts. And even though we do the work we do here at Peace Restored, we are still human.
Yes.
And we still have our own hurts and our own things that we still process through. But I also think that's one of the huge benefits of Peace Restored, is not only are the women here, do we have training to work with the ladies that we work with, but we have a heart because we've been there.
Yes. And like you said, the legacy, I wanted to carry the legacy forward, of Kirk. And I didn't want his death to just be death, I wanted, like you said, beauty, from ashes. And I just didn't want his life to just not be remembered and go away, that he died in vain. I didn't want that. Mm-hmm. And so that's, I think why God just laid that on my heart, because my heart was open to that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great. I'm so grateful that you were able to do that and reach out and make that connection.
Yes.
How amazing it's been. So you talked a little bit before about those bags that you wanted to take and give out. Can you expand a little bit on those as well, and then talk a little bit about why it was so important for you to give out these bags? I think you touched on a little bit, but just expand a little bit more on those two things.
Sure. Yeah, like I said, we had people come, even before the services and after. Of course, I had the services pretty fast because I didn't want to linger. But I was getting, books and journals, and, Emily was getting, books and journals herself, and stuffed animals and coloring books. And so, so as time went on, I would go into like Christian bookstores and look for books, because at this point, I hadn't really, we did start biblical counseling right off. But how it is, you kind of, you get weaned down. And then I went through a support group, through a hospice center, here in Central Indiana. And that helped, but it was, it wasn't just widows. It was, mothers and daughters and sisters. So it was not specific to widows, which was what I was really striving for. And I think that's why the widow's bag, came in. The thought, the idea got put on my heart, because not only did I want to give those out, I wanted to find a community of widows to have as a group, to share our stories and to share, just to share life.
Yeah.
And because nobody understands better than a person who is going through that same type of situation. So for me, it was other widows we would really connect on that because of our shared experience.
Yeah, that's good. It's that shared experience is important, because there's something you just don't understand unless you've been there. I mean, we can read about things, we can have compassion or empathy for an experience, but to actually live the experience is totally different.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's great. This has been a good way for you to be able to share your heart's passion to serve widows. I mean, it's been really good to see you blossom serving the ladies. So let's talk about how it went from just being a bag to what we have today, right? Because we don't just do a bag, right? We do way more than that.
Right, yes.
So can you explain, maybe talk to the audience a little bit about how do we come up with the idea of how to meet and what to do? And I mean, it's kind of morphed over the years, but it's been an interesting journey just in that group alone.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So with the bags, and like I said, I was trying to figure out how to get funding to buy the stuff for the bags because, I mean, I would love to have bought all the stuff myself, but you know as well as I do that's not possible. So I went through our county's foundation and told them my idea, and that's how he took the steps and talked me out of the fund and to send me to you. And so I know we had emailed each other, and then we went and met, to discuss, my idea and help with the logistics. But on the grander scale, as far as group wise, like I said, I really wanted to meet other women because I had joined another widows group, but they were all older. Yeah. And they met during the afternoon and during the work week. And so, I'm blessed to work at at an organization that allows me to, flexible and, and I have vacation time. So I was able to go and meet, go to these meetings. But because I was also, now found myself a single parent, I was responsible. I did have help, from my parents and my aunts and uncle, because I'm also blessed to have, family that lives around me. So I did have help, but, going and picking her up from school, getting her to, her soccer activities, because that really took up a lot of our time. It was just, and then had total care of the house. People don't understand that, you have, not only, do you have the inside of the house and, raising your children, now you have an outside of a house, and his chores now fall back on you. So you have double the work, right? Paying the bills, and then everything after he passed, taking care of the estate. He owned his own business. I had to close all that down. I had to get a lawyer. I had to get an accountant, and I was blessed to have my dad and my mom with me every step of the way when I do all that. But there's so much that goes in, that, you just don't think about until it happens to you. So, especially when he owned his own business, that got a little complicated, but, God's grace, he orchestrated, a beautiful, deal that we were able to do with a company outside of Indiana, and I was able to close it all down fairly quick. But, it's just, just to have other women, in that group, they were just older women. They just didn't, because that's what you do. You think of an older woman like your grandparent. Yeah,
like somebody in their 80s.
Yes. Yeah. And, and like you with your statistics, that's not how it is.
Not how it is.
So I think all along my main goal was, to try to find a way to make a group. Yeah. And to get to that point, I was kind of lost.
Like, how do I get from the idea of a bag to a group? And it was like, and it was a great concept, right? Like, I want to show people that they're cared for, that they have value and worth, that they're seen.
Yes.
And that was kind of the intent behind the bag. But then what's the vehicle to get the bag to everybody? Yes. And then how do I create a group? And how do I let people know that there is a group?
You're right.
There's so many questions, right? How do we do all of this?
Yes.
And I think that's kind of what we started talking about in those meetings, was like, how do we get from the thought to implementing? How do we actually make this happen? So do you remember in that first meeting of how we kind of started processing through those thoughts?
Yeah. I know like you said, we met here at a local restaurant, and and like you said, I think just when we first sat down, I'm like I instantly knew, you know, that God orchestrated this. You know, we hit it right off. I felt like I had found a, you know, a new beautiful sister in Christ to, you know, to help, you know, because not only it was also a way for me to continue my healing, you know, and so I don't know. I just, after that meeting, when I walked out, I just knew that, you know, whatever we were going to do, you know, God was in control, and, you know, and he orchestrated this for a reason. And, you know, and I mean, I got into my car, I'm like, I'm on board, you know, with Peace Restored and with Ann, you know, whatever we can do together, you know, I'm just going to make this happen, because I knew I wasn't the only widow sitting in my hometown and in the county and in the surrounding counties.
Little did we know, right?
Yes. So, you know, and I had a little bit of experience, you know, being a part of a nationwide widows group, and I went to a conference out of North Carolina, and that was a wonderful experience, because I was with 60 other widows, and, you know, they came, you know, we had women coming from, like, you know, Puerto Rico and, you know, California, you know, out to North Carolina, and, you know, I met all these wonderful women. I'm like, if I had, you know, I had to fly to North Carolina to meet these ladies. I'm like, there has to be more in our community. And so, you know, after you and I met, and I thought, you know what, this is going to work, because, you know, she's just starting out, and, you know, I just knew that, you know, we could get something going together. So, so it was, you know, it was just great to be able to, you know, just to have that hope, you know, that one day I would be surrounded by other ladies that were widows. So,
well, I'm just grateful that you trusted me enough to come alongside of you, to be a part of it, that you said, hey, I'll trust you to come alongside of me with my little baby, if you will, my project of the widows group. And let's figure this out together. And we did. We were just like, okay, we're going to figure out how to serve. And I think our first thing was like, let's just tell people we're going to do a group, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, we did.
So, so do you remember, so how many people came to our first group?
One.
I know, right? So we had our first group, and we had a big crowd of one, including Angela and I. There was 3.
Yes, 3 of us.
We were just, it was amazing. But still it was 1.
Yes.
And we're like, okay.
Yes.
And then for a while it was 1.
Yes.
And we just kept on keeping on, and we're like, okay. But it's been amazing, because over the years, God's brought in, that group just kept growing and growing. And you know, like, an average group is what, like 15 a week now. And it went from going, I mean, when we first started, it was just like once a month. We were just doing it. And then it just started like slowly growing.
Yes.
I remember, like, I think I kind of remember when, like, the second person came, we were like, oh, there's another one.
Yes. Yes. And the funny part's, the first lady she only lives 5 minutes from me.
Yeah.
So right there, that just tells you within the, you know, I knew within the community that there had to be others like me. And yes. And so and a funny story is she is related to my next door neighbors.
That's funny. Yeah.
So, you know, just to have, you know, I just knew there had to be others.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, like, she still comes to our group.
Yes.
So it's just fabulous. And whenever I see her out in public, she's like, Ian, and she comes running to me. And I'm sure she does the same thing with you.
Yes.
And she just gives you the biggest hug. And she's the sweetest person. I just love her.
I do too.
And she's our original.
Yes.
You know,
we call her the OG.
Yeah, the OG of the Young Widows group.
Yes.
So, you know, she's pretty great, and we're glad that she still comes around and still is a part of what we do. But I think that speaks to the power of the group and why she keeps coming back, because there is such a benefit to that group.
Yes, there is. Yes.
So we went from 1 to 2, and then I felt like after about 2 or 3, it kind of blew up.
It did. Yeah, it took off pretty quick.
Yeah, it was like, oh, here they come, and it's just like people just started finding us and connecting with us, and so so it kind of went from this humbling beginning of just one, and things kept growing. But as Peace started growing and the Young Widows group started growing, we were like, okay, can we do more or should we do more? We started kind of talking through that, right, in the beginning.
Yes.
So do you remember what we started doing? Because we added stuff
Yes.
quickly after just doing the once a month group.
Yes. It's because we started in October.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the holidays kind of hit us pretty quick. Mm-hmm. And so that second year when we talked through it, we decided to start doing like Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas parties. And those are very well attended.
Yeah.
And then we started deciding to do retreats. So we did 2 retreats, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I just want you to know, we just had our fellowship dinner on Tuesday night, and I was asked by 3 or 4 of them
when it's coming.
We were going to start those back up.
Okay.
So there is a need, and if
Yeah.
you know, the retreats are just a great time to bond and reflect and share.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's just a wonderful experience just to see the transformation. So yes, the retreats are great.
Yeah.
And then we did start, there wasn't, you know, once a month we just don't feel enough. Can we do a second?
Yeah.
And so that's when we started doing the fellowship dinners.
Yeah.
So, and those are very well attended. So we kind of, you know, I try to make it fair for all the ladies because our demographics, you know, we hit several counties around where we're at. And so I try to make it fair to everybody, you know, try to keep it close. So, you know, if I have to travel, I'll travel. It doesn't matter to me because I don't want them to always travel. So, and that's worked out really well. I just started that this year, and they're very well attended.
Yeah.
So, and it's just a great time to get together and just, you know, just have dinner and you know, talk about, you know, our last couple weeks and things that are going on. Some ladies have just been coming to the dinner, so we kind of catch up with them. So yeah, it's just really, really grown.
Yeah.
And so now, you know, we're talking about, you know, maybe going and doing like a little getaways together also, because as a widow, and when your children are gone, you know, grown up, it's kind of boring to travel by yourself. I know I've known other ladies who have traveled, you know, and they like it, you know, doing it by themselves. But, you know, it's always funner to be with more people. So, so we have, that's kind of came up into the group too, maybe do like a little travel together. So,
so this group's kind of organically grown over the last several years now. And it has been interesting to watch how our reach, like you said, it's been in not just our local county, but it's been for Indiana. For people who are listening to this in Indiana, they'll know the counties. But if you're not from Indiana, you're going to be a little lost. But so we're located in Morgan County, and like our 4 largest counties we serve, obviously the large one is Morgan County because we're located physically here. But then we also hit Hendricks County, Marion County, Johnson County are the next 3 largest. And those are the counties that are connected to the metropolis area. And so we have had women from other counties as well, but those are our largest serving counties. And if you think, that's really a large demographic area.
yes.
And it's really been kind of neat to see the hunger and the desire for the work that we do, not just in the Young Widows group, but in our entire organization, that they're like, we will drive there because this is so different.
Yes.
We want what you have. And it's been good to watch that. It's been humbling too.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And one thing I failed to mention too is we started Facebook groups about 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, I think that was at a reaction, something that came out of the COVID period.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Because we were all separated, right? So we were trying to find ways to stay connected.
Yes.
And that was a good catalyst for that.
Yes. So we do have Facebook groups. We have one they're both private, but one that's just for the ladies who actually come physically to the meetings and dinners. And then we have another one that is for widows who necessarily aren't there yet to maybe come and meet in person. Or I know personally, I have one or two friends who live out of state that are part of the second one, where it's also private, but it's a little bit more open for any widow. And so we have, those two private groups that can also connect, through social media. And then we have also started offering the virtual meet during the meetings too. So that way those who can attend, still have a way to connect with us, because that's, very important, is that connection.
Connection is huge. Yeah. So with those Facebook groups, the neat thing with those is that it's like you said, there's two different kind of groupings, if you will. One is our membership, if you will, of the widows group. They have that one group, and that's a great place for them to talk about the stuff that's privately going on with them, that's connected with Peace Restored. But the other one is, like you said, it's more of a private public group, if you will. But it's, like if you're a young widow and you're listening to this podcast, go look for our group. We would love for you to be a part of that group. It's a great place for you to connect with other women that have been through the loss of their spouse, and like, hey, I just can't find a place where they understand.
Yes.
Like, what is it like to be a widow at a young age? And remember that young is a relative term, right? And so if you feel like you fit within that, because we don't put a top cap on it, but it's a relative term. So we want to be a service to you. So that is one way they can connect us. But I think the other thing that's, again, the neat thing about Peace Restored is that because we have all these different components, that our widows, not only can they come in for the Young Widows group, but some of them take advantage of our other programs that we have.
Yes.
They can come in for counseling services. Yes. We have, which you'll get to meet in our next couple of podcasts, you'll get to meet Renee, and she's going to talk about our counseling services that we provide. But that's another, so they might take advantage of both ends. So they don't come in and just say, oh, you can only be part of the widows group. They can come to they can come take advantage of counseling services. They can come to any of our topic-driven classes we have, or any of our other support groups that we do. It's all available to them. So some of our ladies, they avail themselves to everything.
Yes.
And some avail themselves just to the group, and it's really their choice.
Right.
But that's one of the benefits, again, of Peace Restored, is because we're a donation-based ministry, people pay what they can afford. It allows people to be able to receive all the mental health services they need, instead of just having to be selective. So, I mean, it's really great to see how we have all these pieces that work together.
Yes. Yes. And something I also failed to address is we also have a card ministry where we send out cards for the ladies, their hard days and their birthdays.
Yeah.
And then also, in between our fellowship dinner and our actual meeting, I give the ladies a call. I personally call each lady. Usually takes me about 2 nights. A lot of, some answer and I'll talk to them for quite a while, and some, are busy. I get it. Life is busy. And I'll just leave them a little voicemail, let them know, about the upcoming meeting and what we're doing. But it's just a way for me to be able to connect just one-on-one with the ladies, because there's some things that they might not want to say inside of a group setting, but they might want to say to me, personally. And so I've had, many, personal conversations, with the women, and of course it's all confidential. And I always tell them that, anything that, that's said between us stays with me. And I just, we want to give them a safe space, because that's, what, Peace Restored does, is we give women a safe space. And I want them to feel safe. And even in our meetings, I begin the meeting by saying, this is a safe space. What's said in here stays in here. It's all confidential. And I think that really helps them to, to open up. But just, some of them have just really opened up to me just over those phone calls. And so that's been a real blessing, too.
Yeah.
It's just having, those types of on the side type of ministries for the ladies.
Yeah, there's a lot that you do in that group that a lot of people don't have an idea of how many different moving components there
Yes.
are. But there's a lot that we do to serve the widows group, the ladies that come in through the widows. So as you kind of talked about, though, with that bag, just kind of circle back to that because we haven't really talked about, like, when our ladies do come in now,
Yes.
we do have a widow's bag
Yes.
that we put
Yes.
together. And so they do, so that is part of our services. They
Yes.
come in and we give them a bag, but we don't just give them to the widows. You want to talk a little bit about who all we give bags to?
Of the children
Mm-hmm.
of the ladies also, and it's according to what age they are.
Mm-hmm.
Like the younger children will get like a stuffed animal, coloring books, crowns, and and a lot of this is donated.
Mm-hmm.
People know the need.
Yeah.
God knows the need, and when was that? A couple months ago, somebody gave us like a ton of coloring books.
Yeah, adult coloring books.
Yes.
We got about 300 of them donated,
Yes.
which is fabulous.
Yes.
So yeah, I think we have a list up on our our website for the Amazon wish list. And sometimes
Yes.
people will go into that and they'll say, oh, this is what they need. And so they'll send us stuff. And that's great because it's a blessing to us to get those things sent
Yes.
us, but also it allows us to take the money that we would normally spend
Yes.
on that and use it for other parts of the ministry. So
Yes.
that's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then for our teenage age children, I would give like a journal
Mm-hmm.
and like fun, like coloring gel pens
Yeah.
and the coloring books,
Mhm.
adult coloring books, and and just try to give them something that gives them comfort. Just because I seen that happen at Kirk services. 'Cause every
Yeah.
time I turn around, Emily was walking through with another little
Yeah.
gift bag looking, with like a little stuffed animal or
Yeah.
and so I just think it's a really neat way, to kind of give back
Yeah.
to the children of the, because it's not only the widow,
Yeah.
it's also the children too that have
Yeah.
lost their father. So
Yeah, because sometimes, unfortunately, the kids get forgotten in the mix.
yes,
I don't think it's on purpose, but I think it's because the focus, probably rightfully so, is on the mom,
mm-hmm.
on the wife, saying, because she's the one that everybody's drawing in to serve, which is good. But that little kid, they're just sitting there going, "Hey, I hurt too."
Yes,
But they don't know how to articulate that. And so we want to step in there and say, look, not only is the mom not forgotten, the wife not forgotten or seen, but we do see them, we value them, but we value those kids too.
yes,
And so we do a package for all of the kids and the mom. And sometimes there's been occasions where the widow has lost, they have older children and they might be helping to raise their grandkids. So we
Yes.
also give stuff to the grandkids too
Yes.
sometimes. So it just depends on the dynamic of the family.
yes,
And so sometimes a widow will walk out with one package, sometimes they'll walk out with 5.
yes.
I think we had a widow one time that had 5 kids,
Yes,
and she had, so we gave her 5 package. She had 6 altogether when she left. She's like, "Oh my goodness, this is a lot of stuff." I'm like, "Well, we want each of the kids to know they're
yes.
important,
Mhm.
not just give you one bag and say, figure it out." We wanted, it's personal, right?
Yes.
It's a personal loss. We want to give them personal gifts. So it's hard to believe how much has occurred in the last 5 now, we're approaching 7 years.
Yes.
And can you believe it? We have talked about our first meeting, all the first women that have come, and just all the changes happened through the Young Widows group. So can you do you know about how many people are in the group right now?
Well, on paper, I probably have around 30 to 35,
Mhm.
but I think at this point, I probably call between 22 to 25.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just the ebb and flow of the group.
Mhm.
So
It does. It changes all the time.
It does. It does. We had a new lady that came to our dinner
Yep.
that one of our other ladies brought.
Yep. She just came in yesterday to the office.
She did?
Yeah.
She told me she was going to.
Yep.
Awesome.
So yeah, so they just,
Very sweet.
we keep having,
Yes.
just keeps growing over time. So right now, like you said, we're probably averaging somewhere in that 25-ish range
Mhm.
of actual women attending. But those numbers change. They can change quickly
Oh,
depending on
yes.
what's going on.
Yes.
And some people, I'll just kind of, since COVID is so recent to the time of us doing this broadcast or this podcast, people might think, well, maybe the reason why they are so big is because of COVID. And I just really want to say, like, yes, that we do have widows here because of COVID.
Yes.
But man, that is not the reason.
No.
This is because this was something before COVID.
Yes.
It'll be something after COVID. And it's just a fact of life. And we're here for that. And so it's been amazing to see how this has grown. So one of the things that we didn't talk about is why, I think we kind of did touch on this though. But let's kind of maybe end on this, is talking about the intentionality of calling it the Young Widows Group, because we kind of went back and forth on a little bit. We could call it the Widows Group. We could have, like, what do we call it? And we end up calling the Young Widows Club is actually what we call it. And so I think we talk a little bit about why we call it we have a phrase we say about the Young Widows Club. I think you'll know what I mean. And then talk about why we called it the Young Widows Group.
Well, we kind of did go back and forth about it, and there is another organization that serves widows that had a club in the name,
Mm-hmm.
and I just thought it sounded more upbeat than using the group
Mm-hmm.
name, just because, we don't come together and wallow. We do have sad times. We do cry together.
Of course.
But we have several women in the group that have just the most greatest, funniest personalities and sense of humors. And so they'll come in and tell us their funny stories, and we'll laugh for 10, 15, 20 minutes. I mean, it's not all, it's not, and a lot of people have said to me, I was afraid I was going to come in, it was just going to be depressing.
Right.
Or women who have been a little reluctant because they don't want to come in and get more depressed. And that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
So I think as far as the young goes, we don't have any age constraints on it. But just, young at heart, just, but, like you said with that statistic, it's like 52, 59, something like that.
Yeah, it's really low.
It's very low. So, I just, I wanted every widow to have a space, but just to call it, Young Widows Club was to, to make it sound more, not doom and gloom, but more joyful, hope, just more hope, that I wanted, to go into this.
Well, right now, our youngest widows, if I remember correctly, they're in their 20s.
Yes.
And so I think that's hard for people to think about, widowhood in 20.
Yes.
Like, what do you mean? I'm like, you can be a widow at 20. I mean, it's unfortunate, and it does happen, probably more than most of us realize. The biggest question I get asked when I tell them they're that young, they assume that it's because of military related, but that's not always the case.
No.
There's many other reasons.
Yes.
And we didn't touch on this, so I'm going to touch on it real quick because
Sure.
I feel like it's kind of coming up in our conversation right now, is that intersectionality of why, what the Young Widows Group and the grief component with the trauma, because kind of like you indicated with your story, is when someone dies at a young age, there is often, not always, but often, a traumatic or crisis event that's occurred.
Yes.
And that is intersectionality with the Young Widows Group and all the other things we do at Peace Restored, because just like you said, you and Emily, you have PTSD from the experience of losing Kirk. There's other women that we've worked with that have gone through hard things as well. There's overdoses from addiction. There's suicide. There's workplace accidents, car accidents. All these things are sudden and hard.
Yes.
Some are by natural causes as well.
Yes.
But when you lose someone suddenly, unexpectedly, or through traumatic event, it is so hard for our brains to wrap around.
It is.
Yeah. And so that, again, is the beauty of Peace Restored, is how we can come alongside those women and not just provide them a group, not just have a bag, but say, listen, we're here for the long haul. We're here to listen to your phone calls. We're here to provide counseling, to give you trauma-informed care with a faith focus.
Yes.
We're here to do all those things for those who choose. Again, we're not going to force anything on anybody, but we're here to serve the ladies that we serve and to serve them well. So that's one of the beauties of what we do at Peace Restored.
And one of the things I do want to touch on too is all of this, going through, this whole process. It was very important to me to be with a faith-based organization.
Yeah.
Because, if it wasn't without, Jesus, I don't know where I would be.
Yeah.
I don't know how people grieve outside of faith.
Right.
Because it's hard to grieve inside
Mm-hmm.
faith. So to grieve outside,
Yeah.
I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
I know what it looks like, and it's, grieving's not pretty.
It's not.
But to grieve outside of faith, so that's why it was very important to me, when you and I talked and everything was faith-based, I was like, I'm sold, because that's just, that was very important to me.
Yeah. You said something just now. You said grieving isn't pretty. But I would say that grieving is necessary.
Yes.
It's one of the things I tell ladies that I've worked with in counseling is like, while you may not want to grieve, I challenge people to think of grieving as a gift.
Yes.
Because it's a phrase I heard once, it's the cost you pay for loving someone well.
Yes.
And because if you didn't grieve, if you're not grieving over that person, then it's probably because you didn't have a relationship with them.
Yes.
Because we all hear about people who die and we're sad, right? But we don't grieve over them.
Right.
And there's a total difference. So while grieving is hard, if that is your journey that you're in is grieving, please reach out for help if you are having a hard time processing through grief. If you don't know what to do with it, if you feel overwhelmed with the grief, if you're in a place where that grief is moving from just sadness to depression, or if you're having thoughts of, I don't know if I want to continue on, please reach out. You are not alone. You are not the only one out there. You can call us at Peace Restored. Our number is 317-361-5281. And just talk to somebody in our office and say, hey, I need help. I need the resources you're talking about. I feel alone. And it's okay to feel alone, but to know the truth is that you're not alone. So Angela, thank you so much for being a part of Peace Restored.
Thank you. It's a blessing to me, because I always tell the ladies they're more of a blessing to me than I am to them. They have no clue.
Yeah. So we have been blessed to have you to be a part of this journey. I've been blessed to watch you, to see you grow, to see you step into this role in leadership at Peace Restored. And we're just so blessed to have you a part of our team. So I can't wait to see what comes next and how God's going to continue to grow us at Peace Restored. So over the next several podcasts, we're going to continue to share with you how we have grown in our mission of Peace Restored. So in the meantime, if you would like to learn more about us, go to our website, which is peacerestored.net. You will be able to find links in our show notes with a few video links, so don't forget to go to our show notes to learn more about Peace Restored. In the next few podcasts, we will begin to share with you practical ways you too can seek healing and find hope. On our next podcast, you will learn more about our stories and meet another member of our staff, Taylor Carnes. So come back next time to hear our stories of transformation, growth, and power. This is Peace Restored.